technical issues. Good morning. Welcome to worship with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm Nadine Keith. I'll be your worship associate today. First Unitarian Church of Omaha is a community of many genders and sexualities, a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds, a community of wide-ranging abilities and gifts, as well as all ages. In our congregation, we have people with quite varied interests, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, and yes, even religiously. We always wish to extend a welcome to any visitors which may be joining us. This week, as every week, we acknowledge and honor that where we meet for worship as the First Unitarian Church of Omaha is the land of the Omaha and Oto Nation, and that indigenous people in the greater community have become marginalized and made invisible. May we recognize their presence among us and work with them to resolve the issues of poverty, displaced children, and murdered and missing indigenous women, the MMIW. Thank you, Jay Goff, for sharing WC's Arabesque. There's a specific aspect of welcoming that we will address today. In 1990, the UUA launched a program to address widespread homophobia and the exclusion of LGBTQ people within the church. In hopes of fully living out our UU beliefs and principles, this program laid out a specific plan for congregations to expand outreach and support LGBTQ members and their community. This program is called Welcoming Congregations. In 2003, First Unitarian Church of Omaha completed the necessary activities to be certified a welcoming congregation. In 2015, the UUA instituted its Welcoming Congregations Renewal Program to encourage congregations to renew their pledge and actively live the 5 practices of welcome. It is appropriate that on this Sunday, during Pride Month, we seek to learn more about being LGBTQ allies and to refocus on being a welcoming congregation. Let us worship together. The chalice lighting this morning will be done by Peg Pigeon with our beautiful, new, unique chalice, a gift of Reverend Sherry. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Thank you, Peg.
Play at the Bellevue Little Theater by the name of The Last Supper. Please welcome Todd Brooks.
Now, the play may be called The Last Supper, but it's not has the religious connotation. It's actually a dark political thriller, and it goes up in July. So come out if you want to. It's great to support Snap Productions. This song, actually, Jay wanted me to introduce it. Love Who You Love is from a show called A Man of No Importance by Flannery and Aarons. And in the show, it doesn't have the connotation that I heard when I first heard this song. I usually do it in companion with the song that I actually am going to do later in this program, but about a son who writes to his dad about coming out. And I usually do this song after that because to me it always talked about a father's response or what I hope a family or a father's response would be to that letter. Thank you. I'm not one to lecture. How could I dare? Someone like me who's been mainly nowhere. But in my experience, be as it may, you just have to love who you love. You just have to love who you love. Your common sense tells you best not begin, but your full heart cannot help plunging in, and nothing and no one can stand in your way. You just have to love who you love. You just have to love who you love. People can be hard sometimes, and their words can cut so deep. Choose the one you choose, love, and don't lose a moment's sleep. Who could tell you who to want Who can tell you what you were destined to be? Take it from me, there's no fault in loving, no cause for shame. Everyone's heart does exactly the same. And once you believe this, you'll learn how to say, I love who I love, who I love. Then just go and love who you love.
There is not a story for all ages today, so if there are any children in the congregation, they're free to go to their classrooms now. Our social action moment today will be given by Kaylin Goldner on behalf of the welcoming congregation.
Good morning. I'm Kaylin Goldner, a member of the Side with Love team. And as they say, you should repeat something more than once if you want people to get it. So I'm going to repeat kind of what Nadine said. The Side of Love team is calling on members of First Unitarian Church to recommit to being a welcoming congregation. And what is a welcoming congregation? The program was launched by the UUA in the 1990s to address homophobia and discrimination against LGBTQ people within the denomination and broader community. We already are a welcoming community. In 2003, First Unitarian Church of Omaha proudly became officially recognized as a UUA welcoming congregation, committing ourselves to work hard to ensure lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people are full members of our community, our faith community. You may have noticed the plaque that's in the west entrance of the church on the wall, which denotes that. The Welcoming Community Renewal is a challenge to congregations to process a welcome renewal, recommitting to our original pledge, highlighting for new members what it means to be a welcoming congregation, and learning more about the current needs and concerns of LGBTQ people in our church and the broader community. Getting started today, the Side with Love team is an initial activator, but its success requires a diverse team of all genders, sexual orientation, ages, cultural and racial groups to engage the congregation in this process of welcome renewal. There will be a Side with Love table after the Pride service this morning downstairs at Coffee with more information about welcome renewal and how you can be a part of this process. Or you can email sidewithlove@firstuuomaha.org if you have questions or you would like to express your interest. We welcome you to the Side with Love team, but also we welcome you if you would be part of this renewal process. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylin. It's now time for cares and centering. It's time to share the joys and concerns of members of this congregation. If there are anyone in the congregation that has filled out a slip this morning they would like to have shared, please bring it forward. And Colin McDonald will share submissions we received during the week or any online comments from this morning. Colin?
Okay. Okay, so we have several actually submitted, including one of my own. So we're going to start out with some concerns here. Leah and Mark Magnusano were in a car accident last Friday. They both have broken ribs and are out of the hospital. A GoFundMe page and a meal train have been set up to help the family during this difficult time. You can find these links on the Joys and Concerns message page, which will be sent out Monday. If you don't receive the message, you can call the church office for more information. Now we have a concern from Terry Lynn Brewer. Terry Lynn requests good vibes and wishes for as much quality time as possible with her beloved cat, Midnight, who has cancer. He is still full of snuggles and purrs. I have a concern of my own, sorrow. I lost a friend, Lacey Curtis, earlier this week, sending healing thoughts and prayers to her family and friends at this time of grief. I also have some joys here. Joy from Denise Elaine, who is excited about the new job she started this week. She says, I'm looking forward to growing my career. I'm also happy for my ex-husband and his new fiance. And a joy from Mary Kay Piers. She says, I'm really happy that I got to spend a girls' weekend at the beach with my sister and niece, who was celebrating her graduation with a doctorate in optometry. We had a wonderful time together and got to swim in the ocean. And see if anything comes into the chat here. Do not see anything in the chat. And
Thank you, Colin. Now we go into a time of meditation. And as we do this, please hold these and other unspoken concerns in your thoughts. I'll share some words from Laura Solomon, to be followed by a moment of silence. Spirit of life, may we love ourselves and one another into our fullest selves and truest expression of our identity. Help us know the shimmering of our own beautiful spirits and remind us of the ways we, each of us, are an essential piece of this rainbow. Now is the time in our worship service where we collect the morning offering. Each month, First Unitarian Church designates a community recipient to share the plate. So half of the undesignated funds in the offering plate each Sunday go to a community agency. And in June, our Share the Plate recipient is Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbians and Gays, otherwise known as PFLAG. This is the United States' largest organization for parents, families, friends, and allies united with people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And if you're online, donations can be made directly to this organization at pflag-omaha.org.
I'll be doing a song I talked about earlier in the show. Church service. It's called Dear Dad, and it's about a young man who's trying to come out to his family, but by writing these letters, and he can't find the right way to say it. So it's by Eric Barnes. It was written like in, I think, 1994, something like that. So it's been around for a while, and I've been doing it for a while. Hopefully I can remember all the words. Dear Dad, hi, how are you? I hope you and Mom are fine. I'm more or less just writing to say, hey. Thank you for the birthday card and the pictures from the picnic. And, well, there's something else I want to say. And, well, there's something else I need to say. Dear Dad, hi, how are you? I hope you and Mom are well. Just saying hi, there's not a lot to say. This morning I was shooting hoops with a couple of the guys. You know, lots of famous sports figures are gay. Dear Dad, hi, how are you? I hope you and Mom are fine. You know Plato, Judy Holliday, Elton John, and Gertrude Stein. Dear Dad, did you know scientists have identified a gene? Dear Dad, it's coming out day. Hallelujah, I'm a queen. Dear Dad, here's the number of our local PFLAG meeting. Dear Dad, just so you know, I won't be doing any breeding. Dear Dad, I'm in the papers. Dear Dad, I'm in love. Dear Dad, this is the first thing that I've ever been sure of. Dear Dad, I'm a faggot. Dear Dad, I am proud. Dear Dad, why am I scared to tell the truth, for crying out loud? Dear Dad. You told me something long ago I always will remember. You said my happiness was always up to me. And as a kid I never knew if what you said was false or true. But now I'm an adult and I agree. Life doesn't come to us in paint-by-number ways. Love has no mathematics in her voice. I didn't ever plan to fall in love with another man. It's something over which I've had no choice. We met 5 years ago that day in May when we had snow. And we've been together ever since. I'm not going to embarrass you with sentimental details, but Dad, he really does remind me of a prince. I can't lie anymore. And God, it feels so much better. Although I'm kinda scared of what I've just begun. Just remember who I was right before you read this letter. I was then, and I remain your loving son.
Thank you, Todd Brooks. Now Kai Alexander has a presentation on behalf of the MTC.
We've all heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, right? What about the golden rule? Treat others the way you want to be treated. For many of us, these are things that we learned early in life, yet we may still find ourselves unintentionally breaking these rules. Whether we realize it or not, many languages, including English, use gender binary pronouns. For example, he, him to identify a male individual, or she, her for a female. Pronouns are used when we are speaking about others in third person. However, when we use pronouns that imply a person's gender based on our own assumptions, such as the person's appearance or their name, those pronouns may not be correct. By making assumptions about what pronoun to use, we may unwittingly offend or disrespect that person and reinforce gender binary. Properly using a person's preferred pronoun is an excellent way to show respect and dignity. Using appropriate pronouns is just one step toward respecting others' gender identity and creating a more welcoming space for people of all genders. Not to mention, the experience of misgendering somebody can be embarrassing for both parties. Luckily, there are some ways that we can help to avoid these mistakes and this embarrassment. One way is to ask the person what their preferred pronouns are or how to refer to themselves if you're not using their name. Another way would be to add pronouns of your own while you're introducing yourself to someone. For example, hi, I'm Kai, he, him pronouns. This can help to avoid that uncomfortable feeling of having to ask somebody their pronouns, while also prompting the other person to include their pronouns when they introduce themselves to you. Lastly, an excellent way to help avoid others by making assumptions about you and help promote awareness for all genders is by simply adding your preferred pronouns to email signatures, social media profiles, and name tags. These actions can help make our congregation and community more inclusive and welcoming for transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary persons. Small changes made regarding the use of pronouns can make a big difference in someone's life. It starts with you, and it starts today. Following today's service, in the foyer, there are stickers that can be added to your name tags with your pronoun. Mine now has he, him. I encourage you to seek out the stickers. There are more pronouns than just the he, him, she, her, non-binary. There are also blank stickers if you would like to fill in your own. Again, I encourage you to add these stickers and help to form a welcoming congregation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. I'm going to share a reading which was suggested by our guest speaker today. Our guest speaker today is Joni Watke. She's been an attorney in private practice and a professional speaker since 1996, and she co-founded the Academy LGBTQ, whose mission is to educate organizations and families to elevate themselves so that they can celebrate LGBTQ individuals. Joni is also a former PFLAG National Board member. She makes presentations to educate and raise awareness of LGBTQ issues for thousands across the country each year. She will share her journey of raising 3 children, 2 of whom are LGBTQ, in a time when few people even knew that transgender youth existed. The poem is The Cookie Thief by Valerie Cox. A woman was waiting in an airport one night with several long hours before her flight. She hunted for a book in the airport shop, bought a bag of cookies, and found a place to drop. She was engrossed in her book, but happened to see that the man sitting beside her, as bold as could be, grabbed a cookie or two from the bag in between, which she tried to ignore to avoid a scene. So she munched the cookies and watched the clock as the gutsy cookie thief diminished her stock. She was getting more irritated as the minutes ticked by, thinking, if I wasn't so nice, I'd blacken his eye. With each cookie she took, he took one too. When only one was left, she wondered what he'd do. With a smile on his face and a nervous laugh, he took the last cookie and broke it in half. He offered her half as he ate the other. She snatched it from him and thought, oh, brother, this guy has some nerve and he's all so rude. Why, he didn't even show any gratitude. She had never known when she had been so galled and sighed with relief when her flight was called. She gathered her belongings and headed to the gate, refusing to look back at the thieving ingrate. She boarded the plane and sank in her seat. Then she sought her book, which was almost complete, and as she reached in her bag, she gasped with surprise. There was her bag of cookies in front of her eyes. If mine are here, she moaned in despair, the others were his, and he tried to share. Too late to apologize, she realized with grief that she was the rude one, the ingrate, the thief. How many times in our lives have we absolutely known that something was a certain way, only to discover later that what we believed to be true was not? Joni Watke.
Good morning. I love that poem. Not that I've ever been wrong. Yet today I think I might have a clean slate today, but maybe not sure. I'm going to start by introducing you to my daughter, Kate. So she is 21. She just finished her third year in college, doing all of those typical college things. So she's hanging out with friends. She's very involved in theater and hopefully occasionally going to class. We kind of have a don't ask, don't tell policy about that. So hopefully she is. So it may surprise you after meeting her to find out that when she was born, the doctors got it wrong. They looked between her legs, they assigned her male, and we thought we had a second boy. Her older brother, Jake, is about 3.5 years older than she is, and we assumed that taking home this second boy, because we believed them, would be exactly the same. Sure, there's personalities that are unique, but how different could it be raising two boys? It could be very different on occasions, because with this kiddo, everything was princesses and mermaids, and unfortunately an awful lot of glitter. I'm working on some national legislation to ban all glitter, so if you can meet me afterwards, we'll all hook up together. So I say it's kind of like COVID. If somebody's playing with glitter, we're all playing with glitter. And we didn't really know what that meant. And so she was born in 2000. I know it sounds wild, but really before internet, certainly before Google, which seems like it came up with us. And so we made the assumption that I think a lot of parents would make today, and certainly most, if not all parents would have made then, and that was that we were definitively raising the gayest boy on the planet. So if there was an international award, no one else need apply, because we had a lock on that competition. And everything about her was what we would consider typically feminine. So much so that we would refer to her as a walking Broadway show, because it was all pink, all Barbie, all musical, all the time. She was about 18 months old when she started rifling through the kitchen drawers to find towels to fashion into long hair or to pin into skirts. And everything that she did in terms of her expression would be considered feminine, stereotypically feminine. And nothing subsided. It always remained the same. There were lots of pushback from the folks that we knew or the community or our faith community, and it usually came in some kind of a suggestion that we needed to redirect. We needed to get her more involved in boy things, more involved in boy sports, and she probably needed a stronger relationship with her dad. And so in order to explain why that seemed kind of a silly concept in our household, I have kind of boiled it down to one typical story, and that would be a birthday party. So for Kate, we would gather around and say she's 3 or 4 or 5, and all of the presents are there, and she's getting ready to open them, and the first one she opens is a shiny Tonka truck in a brand new box. And her response would be, "Thanks," and she'd set it down. She's a much better actor today, but really bad at it then. The second present might be from me or my mom or my sister who knew the things that she really liked. And that present she would tear open and it would be a Barbie, and you would hear, "Oh, I love her, and I know exactly what outfit I'm gonna put her in. I know exactly how I'm gonna fix her hair, and I have the best name for her and the best shoes." How many Tonka trucks are you gonna buy that little boy? It wasn't even a function of money, although that was a consideration. It was more about, why would you waste everybody's time and energy to buy things that she would never open and play with? Because they didn't interest her in any way, shape, or form. So this went on for a couple of years, got about time for her to start school, and we didn't know what to do. How do we make sure that she's supported when the rest of the world doesn't get it? Nobody understands the word. We didn't really know the word. We didn't know anything about gender identity. And so one of the things that we decided to do that we thought was genius was to send her to kindergarten twice. She was an early October birthday, just met the age deadline, so she could go at 4. And then we would send her again to the parochial school where Jake, her older brother, already was, and everything would be perfect. Sound of Music type stuff, right? So in that first year through kindergarten, there we go, struggling with which direction the clicker goes. This is one of the writing samples that she worked on there, and it reads, "I enjoy playing with my Barbie diary because I like to write." And that's kind of how the whole first year through kindergarten at the public school went. Nothing subsided like we thought. She didn't change anything that she liked or any way that she approached the world, which in hindsight I love that they weren't able to get to her in the way that we thought they would. And so this is one of the writing samples from later on in that same kindergarten year. And that writing sample, she makes sure that you know there's a wig there in case you missed the blonde locks. And the writing sample reads, "My task is putting my princess blanket away." And so after that school year, knowing that she was going to start kindergarten at the parochial school, we hadn't gained anything from that year in kindergarten in terms of her figuring out how the rest of the world would see her. We finally got referred to a psychiatrist at Boys Town, and they were able to tell us that they thought it had to do with her gender identity and to try to encourage us to let her drive the bus. She would let us know what she needed and when, which sounded like great advice, except sitting in this limbo for a period of years was really difficult. Because although we knew what made her happy in our household, it was really hard to try to find the words to explain it to the rest of the world because nobody else really got it. One of the things the pediatrician told me to do that spring was to make sure that I redirected, again, that word, redirecting, make sure to redirect her based on body parts. Just remind her she had boy body parts. And so that day, she was getting ready to take these cute little dress-up shoes to her girlfriend Brooke's house. And so I stopped her, and I said, "Well, maybe those shoes should stay home." She asks, "Why?" I said, "Well, remember, you have boy body parts." And she looked at me a little puzzled, and she said, "Well, but I have a girl brain, and that's a body part." Wow, okay, then don't be late for dinner. So I don't know what to do with that. And it was a few months later that we were having this conversation that she confided in me that she really had a girl heart and soul. And I remember in that moment thinking, who am I to tell her what's in her heart and soul and in her brain? I don't know that. So kind of along the lines of the cookie thief, just trying to get myself to stop making those assumptions that as adults that we know better and that adults we have all the answers. And my day job is being a lawyer, right? So we're supposed to always be right. And I think that all added to it in terms of making it more difficult to really appreciate it and my need to defend it to the rest of the world instead of just accepting her for who she was. So she started kindergarten at the parochial school. This is one of the pieces of art she worked on there. So they were supposed to draw themselves with Jesus. So she draws herself pink with blue bows and pigtails. Or in first grade, when they were drawing themselves as firefighters, and she draws outside of the lines provided to make sure she can draw long hair. And look at the eyelashes way before extensions. She had it going on. She must have known something was going to happen. Then later on in first grade, towards around Valentine's Day, they were writing pen pal letters to Kimball, Nebraska, a little tiny town almost to Wyoming. And this was hers. So she draws herself as a boy and then as a girl with long hair and says, "It's my girl soul." And the pen pal letter reads, "Dear pen pal, my name is Ben. I'm a boy girl. I'm 7. My birthday's October 2nd. When's yours?" So the amazing teacher said, "I think that might be a little personal for the first letter," but kept it for me. And I've always loved this because it just is so indicative of who she was and how she was trying to constantly express herself. And so she had been asking us to call her Kate and use female pronouns for a long time at that point. And it didn't happen overnight. Looking back, I certainly regret how long it did take, but I just didn't really fully understand it. And the parts that I did think I understand intuitively, I didn't know how to defend to the rest of the world. And that made it much harder to allow her to transition publicly. And so that spring, at the end of first grade, we did. We decided that we would call her Kate and we would use female pronouns that made her the most happy. And it did indeed make her happy. We started to see portraits like this one, self-portraits of before and after. And so at that point, she was herself pretty much everywhere. Over the summer, we finally were referred to a therapist who specialized in gender identity issues, which really, really helped in terms of answering the questions and doing some role playing for her and giving her the skill sets she would need to transition at the beginning of the school year. But we didn't get all of that transitioning finished before the school year started. So when she started second grade, she had to again hear the boy name. She had to again wear the boy uniform that she didn't like. And I was supposed to go up to school and talk to him about whether or not she could transition there. Jake was starting 5th grade. She was starting 2nd grade. It was all going to be great. Kind of like diet and exercise. I didn't quite get around to getting up there in time. She had gotten in trouble at recess and was sent to the counselor's office. And while she was there, confided with the counselor, "I'm really a girl. I want to come to school as myself, and I'm wondering where I can get a skirt." So I got one of those phone calls from the school, and we brought in the outside counselor and trained the school counselors that were there. And at first, there was a lot of support for her, which was fantastic. This is one of the things they worked on in guidance right after she disclosed, and it was the things that make you angry, how does it make you feel, and then what do you do to feel better? And so she draws herself on the playground. "I'm angry when someone calls me a boy. And when I'm angry, my heart beats fast, and to feel better, I scream into a pillow." Another one of those guidance workshops, I don't know if they were a particularly angry bunch or if this was just part of the curriculum, but ways to calm down. And so you choose the things that mean the most to you. And so for her, it was take a deep breath or sing and dance because she's a theater girl. But on that homework, she wants to make sure that people know who she is. So she draws herself as a boy and says it's the disguise of Ben, and then draws herself as a girl and says it's not the disguise of Ben, but the real me is Katie. She wants people to know in every way that she possibly can who she is and for people to see her how she sees herself. And so as that school year wore on, I often say so did their patients. So the higher ups finally decided that she would be uninvited to 3rd grade and also kind of stopped talking to us all at the same time. So she had over winter break, they had said that she could use the nurse's restroom because she had stopped using the boys' restroom. But only a few of the adults knew that she was allowed to go. And so she kept getting sent back to her classroom. So I reached out and let them know that I had found out that she had been holding it for 3 or 4 days, wasn't using the restroom at school, and I got no response. So I finally stopped in, and that's when I was advised by the principal that they had been directed to distance themselves from me, my family, and this situation. Okay, except there's 3 months of school left, and I'm sending my kids to school every day. Like to know that they have access to the restroom. And so she was very excited about the school year to end because she knew that was the very last time she would have to hear the boy name or wear the boy uniform. And so this is one of my favorite pieces of art from that early spring. So if you can't read the second grade Ease, it's Tough Life to Easy Life, where she draws herself as a boy and then as a girl. And one of the things I love about this piece of art is I think for cisgender folks, so if the sex you were assigned at birth and your brain match, you've never really had to think much about gender identity or what it would be like to transition, but our assumption is transitioning is really difficult. And it can be. But I think what this piece of art shows, even as an 8-year-old, is that not being who you are is more difficult than any of the BS that happens when you transition. That ultimately being yourself is that important and that essential to who you are, that the rest of the noise becomes less important than being who you are. So because my license to practice law was here and there wasn't really any place else to go and my extended family was here, we knew we had to stay. That sounds really bad. We knew we were going to stay in Omaha. And so one of the things that I decided, whether it was right or wrong, was that maybe the community needs some education. Because this is 2009, not a lot of people had transitioned other than really Christine Jorgensen in the 50s. This was before Chaz Bono or Laverne Cox or Janet Mock or Caitlyn Jenner or even Jazz Jennings was really early in her transition as well, although she and Kate are the same age. And so I reached out as anonymously as I could to do a story in the World Herald and then on the local ABC station. Well, once it was on the local ABC station, I had a friend without asking me that sent it to a friend that she had that worked at CNN. Once it was on CNN's website, it got picked up by local affiliates all over the country, and then it went international. So our world blew up very quickly, and as I mentioned, we didn't have any more support from the school. So one of the decisions that we made was to pull her out of second grade a couple of days early, knowing she could still proceed to third grade, but being concerned about her safety. And so that day, she worked on this piece of art, so I asked her what that was, and she said, I just always want to remember the day I got to be myself. And at first I loved it because she's so happy and she's a princess, which she still thinks she is. And then the lawyer in me starts cross-examining it, and I realized, wait a minute, she had been herself nearly every place for an entire year at that point, except school. So now what this piece of art tells me is that when we ask people to compartmentalize who they are depending on where they are, it's not a small ask. When we say, gee, do you have to be out at grandma's birthday party? You know, she's turning 95, she's got a bad ticker. Do you need to be out at that family wedding or family reunion? Or do you need to be out at your faith community? Do you need to be out at work all the time? The answer is yes. If you're asking somebody to authentically be themselves, they can only do that if they are themselves everywhere and in every setting. And when we ask them to compartmentalize that, we are asking them to hold back a big part of who they are. So that summer was very busy. We moved and changed school districts and religious denominations. And then they started the public school altogether. So Jake was starting 6th grade, she was starting 3rd grade, and Jimmy, my youngest, who I haven't mentioned yet, was starting kindergarten. So the only year they were all in the same school building. So she made a decision to not tell any of her friends. We didn't tell any of the parents. We did tell the adults in the building because of the safety issue. We were still, in Omaha, it was kind of like trying to be in the witness protection program 5 miles away. Not easy, other than to just kind of disappear from social media and try to not tell anybody where my kids were in school. And that worked pretty well. She ended up disclosing in the school newspaper as a freshman. And so Jake was a senior and she was a freshman and Jimmy was in 6th grade, and that, I'm happy to announce, was a non-event. Nothing happened that day, which was fantastic. And so then this is all of us, just this last holiday season. So it starts with Bree, who is my now daughter-in-law, with my son Jake. They got married December 1st. And then next to me is Kate, and then her boyfriend Carter, and then my youngest Jimmy. And sometimes when you're a parent, you get really lucky, and you end up with 2 LGBTQ kiddos, which I did. Jimmy, my youngest, who just graduated from Westside, is heading off to Michigan. I'm this close to being an empty nester. He identifies as gay. And so it's been really kind of fascinating to watch how their journeys are similar and how they're different. And he came out in a poem at school in 7th grade. So I'm going to share that with you to give you a little nugget of who he is. So his poem reads, "It's still hard to say I'm gay. because I don't always know if I'll be okay. Pulse nightclub was shot up on June 12th, 2016. It was shot up by Omar Mantine. It was a happy place for the people like the ones that died that day. What if I was there, I think? If you don't think anything is wrong, you prove my point. A nightclub could be my life's end point. A gun could kill me with a loud bang. No, the holder could, because hate does things no one should. Being gay is a perfect imperfection. Based on what people say, should I be this way? It's still hard to say I'm gay, because I don't always feel safe. So that's him processing as a 7th grader, both marriage equality, which was super exciting, and then the massacre at Pulse nightclub. That really hit him deeply. And I think that sometimes we have a tendency now with marriage equality to assume that being gay is no big deal. Coming out as gay is no big deal. That the only struggle really is for trans folks. And I think that that Jimmy would tell you that's not true. It's still really difficult to come out as gay. It doesn't really matter what your orientation or gender identity is. If you're not straight and cisgender, it's going to be a difficult time. And I think we need to be cognizant of that. Although there are a lot of struggles that are unique to the trans community, we can't forget that coming out as gay or bi or pan or poly is still going to ruffle some feathers for some folks. And with the legislative climate right now, we're not even sure what's going to happen in terms of marriage equality. So thinking that that's kind of a done deal and isn't touchable, I don't think is something we can comfortably say anymore. So I guess in the theme of the cookie thief that I love so much, so much, I just ask that as you're learning new topics or about new identities, that we not always rely upon our knee-jerk reaction of our first response, and that we give it some space and some time and listen to lived experiences to learn more about the incredible LGBTQ community that we have even right here in Omaha. And so with that, I will close and wish you a happy Pride Month.
Thank you, Joni, so much for sharing your family story. It's time for the closing hymn. Would you stand in body or spirit and join in singing number 170, We Are Gentle, Angry People.
Gentle, angry people.
It's time now to extinguish the chalice. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our lives as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, and being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one. We have some announcements. Are there any announcements from the congregation that need to be shared? I do want to announce that this month, June, First Unitarian members and friends are asked to bundle their contributions to KIOS, Omaha Public Radio, for underwriting our church ad. This past year, you will have heard our ad during Morning Edition and All Things Considered in weekdays, and on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, and live from here on Saturdays. Donations will be collected throughout the month of June. Please place your check made out to First Unitarian Church with KIOS in the memo line in the offering plate, or mail it to the church office, or give it to Jean Wagner, who's coordinating the campaign, and she's one of our ushers today. I want to remind you about the pronoun stickers in the foyer. Please take advantage of them and add one to your name tag. Feel free to make your own name tag if nothing there fits. And also encourage you to join in the common room downstairs for coffee, conversation, and to learn more about the welcoming congregation renewal. Go in peace and act.